This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Jay Cohn. The Interior Department blames President Obama for discrepancies in Secretary Ryan Zinke's travel documents.
A memo today from the Interior Department's Inspector General says Zinke failed to keep complete travel records since taking office last March.
The Inspector General's investigation into Zinke's travel habits began last month after it was revealed that Zinke had taken multiple chartered or military flights since taking office. Zinke has downplayed concerns over his travel, going as far as calling them, quote, a little BS, and saying that he took private flights only after extensive due diligence.
But in today's memo, Deputy Inspector General Mary Kendall says the documentation of Zinke's trips are deficient and without proper management and oversight and accountability. Kendall also says investigators haven't been able to determine the full extent to which Zinke's wife Lola traveled with her husband. Kendall is now requesting more documents related to Zinke's travel and recommends that the Interior Department overhaul its internal travel management system.
Zinke's Deputy Secretary David Bernhardt replied to the memo, blaming a dysfunctional documentation process that dates back to the Obama administration.
Bernhardt says the necessary paperwork will be produced, but says the secretary inherited an organizational and operational mess from the previous administration. Well, a portion of the Keystone Pipeline in South Dakota was shut down today after discovering a leak. As much as 210,000 gallons of oil spilled from the pipeline in Marshall County, South Dakota. That's just south of the North Dakota line. Trans-Canada crews are now investigating. It's the largest Keystone spill to date. There are no initial reports on the spill's impact on waterways or wildlife. Today's leak comes just days before regulators in the state of Nebraska will decide whether to grant the Keystone's final construction permit there. That decision is expected Monday.
Minnesota Senator Al Franken is the latest high-profile figure embroiled in scandal. Franken accused of improper conduct against a woman more than a decade ago when both were entertaining troops overseas in 2006. Radio host Leanne Tweeden says Franken kissed her against her will during a rehearsal for a skit. She also posted a photo in which Franken grins at the camera with his hands apparently on her chest as she slept. Franken has apologized and agreed to cooperate with an ethics committee review.
Thousands of Montana children are in limbo, called foster care. It's a system kids enter afraid and alone and often turn 18 years old without ever finding a permanent home.
That heartbreaking reality is known as aging out. And today, 3,900 Montana kids are in foster care, 500 of them awaiting adoption. In
tonight's special report, Q2's Asia Gore shows us the challenges foster kids face now and later.
My life today is basically just taking care of that little one and raising him to have a good life that I never had.
Jasmine McCrae is a 21-year-old single mother. Her baby, King, is her pride and joy. Jasmine wants to be the mother she never had.
She had a terrible drinking issue and she just snapped one night and ended up cutting off all my hair with a butcher knife. My brother ran in the snow in just his pajamas to go get help. I do have a big scar on my head.
That was the breaking point, the moment Jasmine and her 8 siblings were removed. She was just 13. Jasmine entered Montana's foster care system and lived with 5 different families over the next 5 years.
I've been to Laurel, I've been to Senior, Skyview, and West.
Before she graduated from any of those schools, Jasmine emancipated herself and dropped out. Nearly 300 miles away in Glasgow, Jimmy Walker was removed from her home after Child Protective Services learned her mother was an alcoholic and her boyfriend a sex offender.
She would blame me for her financial problems because they took my part of the Social Security away.
Walker's father died when she was an infant, so she was placed with a foster family in Livingston, where she lived through 4 years of high school. Unlike Jasmine, Jimmy was not forced to move, but she too was never adopted. This year, as Jimmy weighed whether to go off to college or return to her mother, the decision was made for her.
Out of the blue, she just passes away, and I'm left alone up here with no one.
To cope, Jimmy is focusing on her classes at Montana State University in Bozeman, where she earned 2 scholarships.
I want to succeed, I want to do good, so my life doesn't suck anymore.
Jasmine and Jimmy entered the same system and left on two different paths. State data shows 65 Montana kids aged out just last year. Many are now in jail, on government assistance, even homeless. Suzanne Braun with Child and Family Services says a lack of foster parents and high caseloads for social workers keeps kids in limbo.
Best practice would be in the lower 20s. So our workers are carrying double that.
To help bridge the gap, programs like Chafee offer career guidance and life skills.
Early on, I really pushed education and learned really quickly that these kids don't grow up in homes where they're required to go to school, and that's not made important. I had to learn really early on that they didn't want to continue on in education, and that wasn't a failure, that there's lots of ways to be out in the world and be successful.
Chafee Director Stephanie Marquis says employment, housing, and parenting are all forms of success. She's mentored hundreds of kids in the Yellowstone County program. Only 2 graduated college.
Their mental health gets in the way of all of this. So they have a lot of grief and a lot of trauma that they face that normal kids just don't have to go through.
Tumbleweed crisis counselor Rebecca Perfett answers calls from teens in their darkest hour.
I've had numerous calls of just, is there a place that I can stay tonight? A lot of the homeless teens that are just needing a warm place to stay.
Perfett brings personal experience to the conversation. She was in foster care, shuffled through 5 different homes in just over a year.
It's just feeling alone and not belonging to any family. No one's going to understand you.
Perfett did not age out. She was returned to her mother. And Braun says that's the goal, reunification. But for many kids, home is too dangerous.
Entering the foster care system should be an experience for them that reaches out and embraces them and wraps around them to get them the services that they need. But it also can come with a different set of trauma for children as well.
As they navigate adulthood, it's not without the trauma they experienced as children. Jasmine and Jimmy tell me they want a system of care redesigned with kids in mind, one that offers options and gives foster kids a voice. In Billings, I'm Asia Gore, MTN News.
Thanks, Asia.
Asia tells us neglect, abuse, and exposure to illegal substances are the most common reasons children are placed in foster care here in Montana.
To learn more about how you can help, visit our website for more information.
Turning to the weather scene tonight, Bob joining us now. It looks like there is no shortage of winter heading into the region, Bob.
Yeah, got a lot of snow starting to move in. Already here in the Billings area, we've had a few sprinkles. Let me show it to you on the Doppler radar. It's really kind of weird because look at this. It's a very narrow band of rainfall starting from the Beartooth foothills, following Interstate 90 into Billings, then Interstate 94 right through Miles City and on into Glendive, and eventually in towards North Dakota. But down there in Wyoming, look at that around Teton and Yellowstone Parks. That's the next system moving in. And as you can tell, it's going to produce some heavy snow. Looking for another 8 to 14 inches of snow in the Beartooths. We have a winter storm warning there. Meanwhile, over in Yellowstone Park and the Absaroka Range, could see 3 to 9 inches of snow in the valley. Some cases locally up to 18 inches. Also in the Gallatin Range, could see 1 to 3 inches of snow at the pass level and 3 to 6 inches of snow up in the highest elevation. So, yeah, I've got a lot of snow moving into the mountains, and looks like we could see a little light snow here in the Billings area tomorrow morning. We'll chat about that coming up in a few more minutes.
All right, thanks, Bob.
Billings business leaders and community members went back to class today.
School District 2's Educator for a Day program offers a first-hand look at the state of education in Billings. And our crew from Q2 spent the morning over at Senior High to see how students prepare for college, at least through the district's STEM classes and activities. And we also got to check out the school's food pantry that helps to ensure no student goes hungry.
The Educator for a Day program offers an inside look into the jobs of educators, as well as highlighting student and teacher accomplishments. A win-win experience for everyone involved.
It's a wonderful opportunity for our community, businesses, and individuals to see our classrooms and our teachers and students in operation, because I know that everybody doesn't get to actually view that on a daily basis, so it's a great opportunity.
But you can't help but be excited when you walk through the halls of Senior High or any of those schools and see the wonderful students and interaction with the teachers and realize that, you know, this is our future. It's as cool as it gets.
Great reaching out there to the community. Well, still ahead on tonight's 10 o'clock news, from battling bears to battling cancer. The community today turned out to help one of its own.
Plus later, world-renowned photographs will be auctioned in Billings Friday night to benefit children.
And in sports, Scott shows us what to expect when MSU's offense meets Montana's defense on Saturday.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Cohn and Jeanelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.